400 cases of people who wandered into the wilderness but never came back. Accounts of children, people,
was a coyote,
vanishing,
dog, or
seemingly swallowed up by the many endless forests across America, or even later found in ways that defy logic.
An animal.
Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man.
She described the way that
like a
the
man. I
creature
don't know what it
moved as being unnatural.
You've had problems in the neighborhood
It looked
before?
like it was
Yeah, my dog was
uncomfortable
killed here
in its
just
own
recently.
feet.
I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, it was standing out there. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything.
She
I don't want to go
believed
outside.
that what she was looking at was
Jesus Christ,
pure
you better.
evil.
Sheriff, Tia,
Hello?
get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9" up.
Do you
Studied
see
the
him now,
cases of
sir?
about
Yes, I'm looking
100
right
people,
at him.
at least, who claim that they've been abducted
hang
by
on.
aliens.
He's
One
right.
of Dr.
Is
Matt's
he in your
patients,
yard,
Linda,
sir?
Yeah,
who says
God,
she
he's
has been
big.
faded out since childhood.
reality, and I was just
what I remember
being brought up this tunnel of light, right?
being around my
Out
bed.
of this tunnel, I
And I
just
ran between
noticed
them,
parts
ran
of
out
my
of
life
the
that
room,
wouldn't
my
even
mother
occur to me to remember.
hide
Then I
from
knew that I
And
wasn't
I
being
never
my
told
mom,
anybody
that I
about
was
that, and I just buried it
close to
in
death.
the back
And
of
so
my
then I
mind.
came to the end of this
My
tunnel
brother, we
and
never
noticed
spoke
there
about
was
it.
a man that first
I
searched me
noticed
at first as
a
a place
mist or a fog
and
kind of
saw
moving.
relatives that had
The
died
action, the
that
motion
year.
caught my eye.
Then
It actually
the
started
wizard, without
taking
moving his
shape,
mouth,
taking
spoke to me and
form.
said,
The
"Struggle,
idea
you're
of the
too
Grim
young to
Reaper
die."
went through my head, cloaked figure. And as I was watching, it kept becoming more and more and more distinct to me that this was actually something with some type of presence. Like it knew I was there. And as I was watching it, it turned and looked directly at me. I felt like whatever this was angry at me. I wasn't welcome. It wanted me out. I had been face to face with a ghost or a demon, a spirit. I'm not really sure what. But this feeling of terror actually was going through me. And I really felt more that it was demonic.
Hey
It was
guys,
something
and
very
welcome to
evil.
Real Supernatural Encounters. Today, we have a guest by the name of Richard, and he's going to tell a few of his supernatural encounters. But before we get to that, Richard, would you like to give a brief bio about yourself?
Yeah, I have a pretty normal, boring life. I'm married. I have a job in IT, and I live in North Carolina. I grew up in the Southeast, and I lived here most of my life. And I've had some pretty creepy, scary encounters ever since I was a child. So I'm here to share those with you today.
All right. Well, Richard, if you're ready, go ahead and start with your first story and just tell them in order whenever you're ready.
Yep. So my very first experience was when I was around 7, 8 years old. I was at home by myself. I was a latchkey kid in the mid late 70s, and I was outside playing. I went in to grab a drink, and I heard a woman's voice clearly call my first name. And then I paused, and then I heard the voice call my first and last name very clearly, like there was someone in the house. Well, I absolutely knew there was no one in the house. My neighbor did come over to check on me from time to time, but it didn't sound like her, and I was almost positive it wasn't her. So I went next door and asked if she had come by, and she said no. That was my first encounter. I was really young. It really freaked me out, but I just kind of let it go and then went back out and started playing, football with my friends again. But and never really mentioned it to anyone because, I was young and I thought, am I going crazy? So that was my very first encounter. Then, it's probably a year or two after that, being a child of the 70s, Ouija boards were pretty common. You could pick them up at just about any department store. Parker Brothers that makes Monopoly and all the other board games made a Ouija board, and they were right on the shelf beside all the other board games. I wasn't even aware that we had one. But friends wanted to play a game. We opened up the closet and I started pulling games out. I was like, oh, Ouija board. So we pulled the Ouija board out, set it up, not really understanding how to use it. So we read the directions that came with it, and we were asking it questions, not really getting a lot of responses. But then I asked it, how old is my mother? And I remember I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I had no idea how old she was. Never had even thought about it. Well, the planchette started moving, and I was like, look at my friends, are you doing this? And everybody's like, nah. And so we're all a little freaked. And it pointed to 2 numbers, and which, so that evening I said, Mom, how old are you? And the Ouija board had actually given me the correct age. I was like, wow, weird. So, that was pretty much the end of the Ouija board experience, but I don't recall ending the session correctly, which I didn't even know was a thing. And I don't know if that caused, opened the gateway or a portal of some sort for some of the other experiences after. Probably months after that happened, I was at home by myself. It was a Sunday evening, loved Sunday night TV, settling in, having a snack, and watching. I could see the TV from the kitchen, so I was sitting at the kitchen table, and I lived in the Southeast near the beach, and it wasn't uncommon for the power to have like little brownouts, not completely go out, but the lights dim. And the lights started dimming, and just, the house got really cold. And I was looking in the den at the TV, and I saw something in my peripheral vision, like something dark, and I looked over, and it's like a shadow, and it just kind of faded back into the hallway. I'm like, yeah, I thought maybe it's my imagination, but it got my attention. And then the lights started, blinking rapidly on and off, and I started seeing the shadows in the den and just kind of randomly popping up. So I ran outside, scared to death. And there was a big picture window that I could see into the den, and it was like getting darker. It kept getting darker, and then it was like a entity was standing in the window, but I could see through it, but it was like a big black, almost humanoid shape, but no distinguishable features. But it was like something looking out the window at me. So I was in my neighbor's backyard looking through this window, and I'm like, I was like probably 10 years old at this point, and I was like, what is that? And I was scared to death again. And about that time, my mom and my stepfather to be came down, saw headlights coming down the driveway, and then everything went back to normal in the house. My mom was very angry at me for being outside, and I tried to say, but I was like, there's no way. I mumbled something to her, and she said, just get inside. Well, she went in the kitchen, and the snacks that I had were just scattered all over the kitchen table and on the floor. And she was very, very angry about that. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to take whatever punishment, because I'm not even gonna try to tell her what happened. She wouldn't believe me, right? My mom did not believe in that type of stuff. Oh yeah, and before I ran outside, I heard like this scraping. It was a brick house. It sounded like somebody taking like a rake or something, and raking it down the side of the house. That's what made me run out of the house. Sorry, I kind of skipped around, but that was really odd, and that came up much later in life. It happened again, but yeah. So, mom didn't make a big deal out of it, but I didn't try to explain to her what happened. Just kind of, another thing that I tried to put out of my mind. And throughout the rest of my childhood and my teenage years, I would see shadows, especially at night when I was trying to sleep. I had a small night light that was on a table close to my bed, but not right beside it. And I would see shadows, and they freaked me out. And that was a pretty common occurrence. And again, I think it may have been related to not closing out the Ouija board session completely or something. I don't know. But I remember one night, I thought, they're just shadows, so maybe it's my imagination. But I was laying in bed facing the wall. The lamp was on the other side, and I was looking at the wall, and I was seeing the shadows. But then I saw a person's shadow come from the side of the bedroom where the window was, going towards the door. So there was no way somebody came in my bed, because I was fully awake. There's no way somebody came in my bedroom and walked back out. So it's like they came from the window and walked out the door, but I just saw the shadow pass across my bedroom wall. That scared me to death. And I don't think I moved the rest of the night. I was just like, so those kind of things happened throughout my childhood and teenage years. And then I didn't have any other really major encounters. I didn't see any other entities and more shadow entities or anything like that. But when it was right after I graduated high school, I was staying at my girlfriend's house. It was her parents' house, but she and I were there alone. Everybody else was out for the evening. And I was sleeping in the den. She was sleeping in her bedroom. And at this point in my life, I couldn't go to sleep if there was a light on. It had to be completely dark. And I worked construction, so I needed to get some rest. And she knew that. And I thought it was her up, opening, closing doors, cabinets, turning on lights and everything for about 10 or 15 minutes, just a lot of racket. And I didn't know what she was doing, but I assumed that it was her. And it got quiet, but she left the light on in the hallway and I couldn't sleep. So I got up and I went in her bedroom and I was like, what the heck were you doing? I have to go to work in the morning. She's like, I thought that was you. I was like, so she got up and we walked around the house. Every closet door was open. Every drawer and every dresser was open. Every light was on in every bedroom and bathroom in the back of the house. It was just really weird. So that's what all the noise was. And it was like, I guess, like poltergeist activity. It freaked us both out. So we shut all the lights off and she went back to bed and I went back to the den, got on the couch, and I didn't sleep a wink that night at all. And got up and went to work the next day. That house, her parents rented that house. The previous owner passed away in it. And I did see shadows and shadow entities in that house, and in particular, the living room seemed to have the most activity for whatever reason. So whenever we were in there, we would both catch things out of the corner of our eye, but never actually see anything manifest into, an entity or anything. And that house just had weird vibes. And it was at that point that I realized that, I can pick up on these things. I have some ability, and I really haven't tried to hone that ability or anything much. I did in my young adult years, but it's something that I kind of suppress it because I don't want to see some of those things, but sometimes I can't turn it off. It just happens. So throughout my adult life, I've had a lot of other odd encounters. And I'm now at the point where they no longer scare me. The only thing, I'm not really afraid of anything except for if I feel like it's, evil or demonic, and, whatever you believe. But ghosts and poltergeist activity and that sort of thing just doesn't bother me at all anymore. But I'm a little bit afraid I think I probably could hone my abilities a bit more if I wanted to, but I really don't want to. So I had a friend that was having quite a bit of poltergeist type activity in her house, and she told me about it. And I was like, well, I might be able to help you, but I don't want you to tell me other than, what you already told me. And what she said was she heard kids running up and down the hallway and slamming doors. And she did have children. She was divorced. And so her kids stayed with her ex-husband some. And, one night, for example, her boyfriend was staying over, and they both heard kids running up and down the hall and slamming doors. And he's like, will you go get your kids under control? And she's like, they're not here. And so he jumps out of the bed and he's like looking around, and there's nobody in the house, but there's lights and calls the doors open and stuff. So, and she was used to it, which was, weird, but it happened so often. She was used to it, but she was getting really tired of it. So I said, okay, well, I know enough. I said, don't tell me anything else. Let me come over and see what I can, see if I pick up on it. So I went over to her house, and I walked around, and I felt drawn to the kitchen. And I went into the kitchen, and I said, this is where it's coming from. Somewhere in this area, there's a portal or something in this area. And I don't know why, but this is the source. And so whatever it is, it's coming through this area of your house. And she's like, wow, that's amazing. She said, because that's exactly where it starts when it happens. She goes, it starts in the kitchen and then moves throughout the house. And I said, the best thing to do is just, whenever it happens again, just yell. This is my house. You're welcome, as long as you don't disturb us. Don't know why you're here, but this is my house now, and we'd appreciate it if you would not disturb us. And so she did that, and it helped, and she kept doing it until it finally stopped. The one thing that I told her, I said, make it clear that be stern, and that it's your home now, and they're welcome to stay, but because they didn't seem evil. If it seemed evil, I would have told her, do some blessings, burn some sage or something. But since it didn't seem to be evil, I said, tell them they're welcome to stay, but just quit keeping you up all night. And so she did that, and it worked. So I was able to help her with that. And a few years later, I was working at a hospital, and it wasn't uncommon for me to get called in later in the night. And one night I got called in to a security system went off, and the building that I worked in was a 3-story building. It was the first building that was built for this hospital. And I got off the elevator and started walking down the hallway. And at the end of the hallway, there was a big picture window. So I could see myself, I could see my reflection. And it looked like these balls, they're like orbs, but they look like Mercury. They didn't look like lights, they looked like balls of Mercury. And they were just zooming around me. And I just reacted, and I started trying to brush them off of me like this. And I'm like, what are you doing to myself? I'm like, this is crazy. And I looked down and I looked back up at the window, and they were gone. I was like, that was weird. But like I said, but at this point in my life, I didn't really get scared. I don't get scared by those types of things anymore. There were a lot of deaths in that area of the hospital. I wasn't the only one to experience things in that wing. One of my coworkers had to meet me there one night around midnight. We were testing out a new system, and he got there before I did, and he was in the meeting room waiting for me, and he said a chair just went sliding across the room. He saw it just fly across the room, hit the wall, and tumbled over. So when I got there, he was outside of the meeting room, and he was shivering. I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, you won't believe me. I said, yeah, I probably will. He didn't know that, I had some experiences myself. And he's like, no, he didn't want to tell me. I'm not. I said, please tell me what happened. So he told me what happened. He said, that chair just flew across the room. He said, it's still laying over there in the corner. And I walked in and looked and said, yep, sure is. And he's like, I don't want to be here. I said, don't worry about it, man. I said, it'll be fine. But so he calmed down. We did what we had to do. There was other people who had experiences in that area, that hospital, and hospitals are just haunted. I mean, they just are. It just makes sense. It's a place where a lot of people pass. So that was another odd experience. Then let's see, I went home to visit my parents, and I arrived pretty late after they had gone to bed. And it was about a 3-hour drive. So I was road weary, but I was kind of wired from the drive. So I grabbed a book and got into bed, and I had the comforter and the sheets folded over about to my knees, and I was leaned over reading the book, and the comforter started moving, and it moved a little bit. So I'm back reading my book, and then eventually the comforter came up and tucked me in. I never saw anything like somebody doing. I didn't see a ghost doing it, but the comforter came up, just slid up like somebody was tucking me in. It didn't feel evil. I didn't feel any evil presence. It actually felt more like a nurturing presence. I have no idea. I actually did go to a psychic, and I think a lot of psychics are charlatans, but there are some legitimate ones out there. So I don't know. She said it was my grandmother on my mother's side, which I had never met. She passed away before I was born. So I don't know whether I believe that. Could have been. Definitely felt like a warm, caring entity or, sensation. So it didn't scare me. Again, these kind of things happen so often in my adult life that they just don't scare me anymore. Definitely weird though, because I was fully awake. I mean, I'd just gotten off the highway from driving for 3 hours. I was wide awake, and I hadn't been drinking or anything, so I was completely sober, completely awake. And so yeah, that was another one. I think that's about all I had for you today. I know we talked about
Did you already speak about the Friends poltergeist activity?
yeah, that was the one where the children in the kitchen,
Okay.
and then the poltergeist activity at my girlfriend's house.
Okay. And what about the disembodied voice?
Yeah, so that was the one, the disembodied voice. That was my first encounter. The woman's voice calling my first and last name.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the first story I told you. But that was really weird because I was that wasn't like I kind of heard it. It was clear. It was like, oh, she wasn't exactly yelling it, but it was loud. And it's like Richard Pickens, just like that.
Yeah.
And it was friendly, and it was in that kind of tone, kind of song. Richard Pickens, just like that. But like somebody was calling my name.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. I was very young. That scared the hell out of me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have a few questions for you if you're ready.
Yep.
Who or what do you think was calling your name?
That one I have no idea. At that point, the grandmother that I did know was still alive. I didn't have any aunts or anyone close to me, female adult, that had passed or anything. I really don't know. The voice didn't sound familiar at all.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't really know. I thought about it over the years and couldn't come up with any reason why it would have happened at that time either. Generally, things like this happen to me after some type of event, like a death in the family or some other kind of tragic event. But that one I have no explanation for.
Okay. Was it feminine sounding or masculine or maybe
It's
more
very feminine.
feminine?
Very.
Okay.
It was a woman's voice. It was not. It sounded like a person.
Did
It didn't sound echoey or faint. It sounded like a person was in the house calling my name. It was loud and clear, just as if someone was in the house. Now I know for sure that no one was in the house.
What kind of activity was you doing at that time when you heard it?
Yeah, so I was outside playing, backyard football with my friends, and I had just come in to grab a drink and drink water, and I was gonna head back outside, and I was, and I just heard it, and couldn't really tell what direction it was coming from, but it was not like it wasn't distant, it wasn't muffled, it was very, very. And TV wasn't on. There was no radios on. I didn't mishear something. The house was completely quiet. So I don't know. It was really weird.
Did it scare you, or did you feel comfort from it, or was you just like curious?
It startled me,
Did
but it scared me a little bit. It was the first experience that I had, but it didn't feel evil. It didn't feel threatening. And like I said, it was kind of my name in song, calling calling somebody's, when you're calling your kids and you kind of sing their name.
Yeah.
So no, it didn't feel threatening. It didn't feel comforting either because it was my first experience, but it didn't freak me out real bad, but it wasn't exactly a pleasant experience either.
How old was you when that happened?
I was, I want to think it was so long ago. I was probably around 6 years old. And
Six.
I believe my father was still alive. He passed when I was 7. So I think this was before he passed, but I'm not sure.
All right. Now you talked about this Ouija board. How old was you when you first used that Ouija board?
That was shortly after that disembodied voice. So I was probably, I want to say that was after my father died. So it was probably about a year after the disembodied voice. And I'm kind of foggy on the time frame because it was so, but yeah, I was probably 8 years old when the Ouija board incident happened.
Wow. Now, you said that the lights were dimming in your house, and then you heard some type of scraping on the outside of the house that made you run out.
Mhm.
What did it look like outside? And then what time was it when this all happened?
Yeah, so this was it was summertime, so and it was dark outside. So it had to be around, so it didn't get dark until 8 or 9 o'clock. So it wasn't real late, but it was late enough for it to be dark outside.
Okay. How long did you stay outside for till your mom got there?
It was less than 15 minutes,
Okay.
probably more.
Did you see anything outside that entire 15 minutes that you
Did
were out
not-
there?
No, and my neighbors were not home. There was no one out there. Yeah, and I never heard that scraping like that again, but my mother passed a few years ago, but before she passed, she was almost completely deaf. I mean, she could hear, but not hardly anything, and she kept hearing it. And she mentioned it several times, and I knew what it sounded like. She was hearing the same thing that I had heard as a child. The thing about it was she couldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I slammed the doors in the house and she wouldn't hear that, but she mentioned it several times. You didn't hear that scraping sound? Like somebody was scraping a rake down the side of the house last night. And little did she know, I wasn't home yet. I was out very, very late. And often I had moved back home to help take care of her in her last years. And so a lot of times I wouldn't get home till 3 or 4 in the morning. I was out with my friends, and but she kept saying it, and I was like, I couldn't understand how she could hear anything like that, even if it was like trying to mess with her head and was actually doing a rake outside her window. I doubt she would actually hear that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I literally could slam the bedroom doors and it wouldn't wake her up. So she didn't believe in supernatural stuff. And so I didn't even try to discuss it with her on that level, but I did point out to her that she couldn't hear anything. And I was like, how are you hearing this? And she's like, she said, well, I don't know how you didn't hear it. It was so loud. Like, okay, so I don't know. That's weird. I've heard of, I watch a lot of stories on YouTube and other platforms, and there are other people who have those same types of experiences, hear those types of things. I don't have an explanation for those, but I don't know. I really don't know.
Has your mom like ever told you anything else other than that that you found kind of weird?
No, she, like I said, she didn't really believe in supernatural. She didn't believe in ghosts. She was a very religious person. Um, so I don't understand. That's one thing I don't understand about believing that you have a spirit that passes on to somewhere else after you
Yeah.
die. How can you not believe that they could still be hanging around here? You know,
Yeah.
and they don't cross over. But she just didn't entertain that. She just really didn't believe in that. I do. I actually do believe that there are spirits that linger and don't cross over, and I also believe that they're demonic entities and things that we don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but I do believe in it.
Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely believe it. I mean, based on the things that I've experienced, I know there's something else. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
positive, absolutely positive.
Do you think if you've never experienced any of this, you would still be a believer?
Probably not. 'Cause I'm basically an engineer,
Yeah.
and my whole job is logic. And if you've never experienced anything and you're a logical person, then it just doesn't make sense, you know.
Yeah.
And unless you're a religious person that believes in spirits and the afterlife, and I don't see how you can have that belief and
Yeah.
not believe. But other than that, no, I don't think I would believe that there were spirits still hanging around after people passed. But having the experiences I've had, I do definitely believe in
Okay. You spoke about when you were a child, you seen this shadow that passed by on your wall. How big was this shadow?
that. It was large. It was adult sized. It was as if an adult walked between the dresser where the lamp was on, and it was like a really dim, like nightlight type of lamp. It was like an adult walked past it.
Yeah.
It was like my bed, a space, the dresser. So, like I said, and they would have had to walk from where the window was to where the bedroom door was. So it's not like somebody walked in my bedroom. It's like someone was walking out of my bedroom, and I had not been asleep. So it wasn't like someone had walked in and walked out. I didn't hear anything or anything.
Did you say you didn't hear anything?
I didn't hear anything. No. But
Okay.
it wasn't like a faint shadow. It was a solid shadow,
Okay. So
and
like pure blackness then.
pure black, absolute shadow without any doubt. And I thought about, like a bug crawling across a light bulb or something,
Yeah.
that those kind of things can, no, I'm positive that it wasn't that. It was well formed. The shadow was well formed. It was humanoid shape actually, and it moved with purpose. If that makes sense. Like it, yeah, it was like it was somebody there. But what was odd about it was, I don't claim to understand ghosts and entities and manifestations, but it was to cast that type of shadow. It had to be pretty solid, whatever
Yeah.
it was, and I don't have an explanation for it other than I was too scared to turn over and look because I didn't want to see what it was. I was
Okay.
afraid of, and
So-
I was at that point.
So do you think there was an actual entity behind you that casted the shadow? Or do you think it was just like a shadow person?
I believe it was some type of entity to cast that shadow. I don't. So if it was a ghostly spirit, they're usually translucent,
Yeah.
and this shadow was too well formed to be something like that. But I didn't actually hear any footsteps or anything. So it's on what I was envisioning in my mind was something floating past
Yeah.
that lamp. But it had to be pretty solid to cast that type of shadow. And I don't think I moved the rest of the night because I was facing the wall where the shadow was, and I don't think I moved until the sun came up. I
Yeah.
was scared. That frightened me.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have moved either. I don't think I would have if I seen something like that. I'd be scared that I'm gonna turn around and see kind of some type of monstrous face, staring right at me. So,
That was
wow.
exactly that. I would turn around and there'd be some, demon face looking at me.
That's so
Yeah.
scary, man.
It was, and like I said, I was still very young at that point. So yeah, I didn't want to see whatever it was.
Now, do you think that you have or had some type of entity attached to you since the Ouija board?
I don't know that I have something attached to me.
Mm-hmm.
May. I don't have experiences often. They're usually years apart.
Okay.
So the one I shared with you, it's not like they happen all the time. But I may have something attached to them, and it may be related to that Ouija board incident. I didn't close it out or whatever properly. It could be related to that. I don't know. I've had psychics, or other sensitive people, like when I meet them, like they say, you're sensitive. I can tell that you're sensitive. And that's one of the words they use. And I don't like to use the word psychic. I don't claim to have any special abilities. As a matter of fact, it would be fine with me if I didn't have these abilities.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've had these experiences for so long that I'm not really scared of much of anything anymore. So,
Okay.
yeah, no, demonic stuff, that kind of stuff, I don't flirt with it. I would not touch a Ouija board. There's no way. No way. You can just open up too many doors with those things.
Oh, yes. I agree with you. I will never own a Ouija board in my life ever again for those exact reasons. What ever did happen to your Ouija board?
My mom threw it away.
Did she?
Yeah. Now it wasn't related to anything, but she, I don't know who brought it in the house. I do have an older brother who, he's about 7 or 8 years older than me. He probably purchased it, and she probably didn't know. But when I do remember the day that she found it, and it went straight in the garbage.
Wow.
Yeah, and she just didn't. Like I said, she was a very religious person, and she didn't like that kind of stuff. So
Okay. So what is the coincidence that, if you didn't have something attached to you, what's the coincidence that you have all this, supernatural stuff happening around you with people in your life, friends, family, and there's always something going around you? Like usually people have probably about 1 or 2 experiences in their life, if not any, but you've had so much throughout your life. Like what do you think about that?
I think that some people just have abilities, and I don't know why. I just think some people do and some people don't. Some people are more sensitive to the spirit world than others. It may be due to your beliefs. I grew up in a very religious family. I, definitely believe in the afterlife and the spirit world.
Yeah.
I'm not an ultra religious person. As a matter of fact, I was probably a heathen most of my life. I've had fun. But I do have a lot of respect for religion in general and other people's beliefs. And I definitely believe in the spirit world. I just think that some people are more sensitive to those things than others, and I just happen to be. I didn't
Yeah.
want to be. I didn't try to be. I just am.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now when you were talking about the orbs, how big were these orbs that looked like Mercury?
They were a little bit larger than a softball, probably about cantaloupe sized.
Wow, those are big.
Yeah, yeah, they were big. And they were fast. They were really fast.
Like how fast?
Um,
Like 5 miles an hour, or like 25,
Yeah.
30? Yeah. Okay.
they were really fast. And there was, if I had to guess, there was a dozen of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it wasn't like one or two. It was like a dozen, and they were all over me. And that's why I started,
Yeah.
trying to. Oh, guys, seeing this in a window is a reflection, and the window, it almost looked like a mirror because it had this
Yeah.
film that's over it in the hospital. So like a privacy film over it,
Yeah.
and so it was almost like a mirror. But and I looked at it long enough that it wasn't like an anomaly with the mirror film or anything. I saw what I saw. There were
Yeah.
orbs, and they were flying around me. And your reaction, if you see what looks like something on you, is to.
Yeah.
And then I immediately was like, I didn't see anything when I looked down.
Yeah.
I looked back up, and they were gone.
Wow.
And so my battery is dying. I'll plug my phone in. Yeah, so that was weird, and it did freak me out a little bit. But at that point, I'd had so many different things happen that I feel like there probably were spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there were probably spirits that were hanging around the hospital for the obvious reasons. But I didn't get any sense that it was evil. I'm gonna plug my phone in here.
Okay.
I didn't get a sense that they were evil or meant me harm. It just didn't feel that way. So it didn't. Now, if it had felt demonic, if it had felt like an evil entity, I would have left.
Yeah.
I say I'm not scared of things, but if I were to get this, feeling that something was demonic or evil, I wouldn't hang around. But that didn't feel that way. I don't really have any idea why they chose to do that night. I know there's a lot of spirits in that area of the hospital. Like my friend's experience with the chair sliding across the room. That was a little aggressive. I'm glad I didn't experience that with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but that encounter, it didn't feel like those orbs. There were probably some spirits, and they curious, lonely, happy to see somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it didn't feel evil or anything like that. So.
What time was it when this happened, and like what was you doing that led up to walking in front of that window when all that started happening?
Yeah, so I was working in IT security, and one of the systems in the security systems in the hospital was set off. So I got called in to check it out. It was about 3 a.m.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, which a lot of people believe at 3 a.m. I believe it's 3 a.m. And I don't know how time zones affect this. I always was curious about that. But have you ever heard that 3 a.m. is like the witching hour?
Witching hour. Yeah. The devil's hour, all that stuff. Yeah.
Some people believe that's the hour that Christ died. Well, some people believe. I'm not saying I believe that. I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Something 3 a.m. is a lot of things seem to happen at 3 a.m.
It's so weird, if you look at numbers and stuff, and time zones, like you said, everybody's time is different. So why is it only when it's dark and 3 a.m. in different time zones and countries that, you know, that the veil or the portals or whatever they are so easily opened that this is when that happens?
It is odd.
Yeah.
There are, if you watch a lot of stuff on YouTube as well as, and a lot of people's stories are around 3 a.m. and it's a really active hour. And like that's the time zone thing just doesn't make sense to me either, because it's people on the East Coast and the West Coast and Europe and everywhere else. Well, 3 a.m. doesn't happen at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works, but it is really odd that statistically, that's when a lot of things like this happen. I don't know,
Okay.
but it's interesting that that's when a lot of these things happen.
Yeah. I wish we had some kind of answers for this. you know. What was your last experience? Like how long ago?
I want to say the orbs, the
Okay.
Mercury orbs at the hospital. I'm pretty sure that was the last one, and that was 4 years ago. So it's yeah.
So you actually had some peace then.
Yeah, and at this point in my life, I don't these things aren't unpeaceful. But yeah, and it's generally 2 to 4 years between. So I'm due to have one any day now. I have some personal thoughts on that I don't really care to share right now about why I think that I probably not had any lately, but I've had some struggles. So just deaths in the family and that sort of thing, which kind of caused me to kind of shut that part of me down more. And I do have control over opening and closing that part up. So that may have something to do with it as well. But yeah, I'm due and I'm getting over those things. So, one was the death of my mother. That happened 5 years ago. So those kind of things kind of shut you down emotionally for a while. And I think that has something to do with my sensitivity or whatever it is. I don't even know what to call it. But I'm starting to feel like I'm starting to pick up on things again. And so I don't know. Any day now. We'll see.
All right. Well, Richard, I appreciate you for coming on and taking the time out of your day to come on and tell your stories. Before we close out this episode, would you like to give closing comments or advice to other people who've either experienced the same thing as you or could experience anything like your encounters and experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are sensitive or whatever you want to call it, or you're having these things like this happen to you, you're not going crazy, most likely. I did go to the doctor and I saw a couple of shrinks, make sure I didn't have any things like that. I would recommend that you see a doctor if you're hearing voices and stuff. I had that one disembodied voice is the only time I heard voices. Don't ever touch a Ouija board. I just don't do it. Don't recommend it at all. And if you are having poltergeist or any kind of experiences in your home or something, reach out to a professional, but or somebody that understands the spirit world. But be careful, because some of there's all these people who are more than willing to come to your house and do a seance or bring their Ouija boards and their ghost boxes things, just be careful. But most of all, don't be scared. Most of the time, in my experience, these things aren't evil. But if you play with evil, you'll get evil. And that's why I said, don't mess around with Ouija boards or any of that stuff. There's no telling what kind of portals you'll open up. And like I said to my friend that got rid of her poltergeist activity, interact with them. Even if you can't see them, talk to them. Say, this is my house, leave me alone. And a lot of times that kind of stuff works.
Okay. Well, Richard, for those people who want to, contact you or share their experiences with you, and I know you mentioned that you also are starting a YouTube channel. Could you give them a little bit of information on how to contact you and check out your channel?
Absolutely. So yeah, I just set the channel up yesterday. So I don't have any videos yet, but by the time this airs, I probably will have some videos. The channel is going to be Suspicious Trader, which is also my Reddit handle. So you can contact me on Reddit through that handle, Suspicious Trader. And like I said, I've set the YouTube channel up, and hopefully by the time this airs, I'll have some videos up there. So yes, if anybody needs some help or advice, feel free to reach out to me on either of those platforms, and I will get back to you.
All right. Well, Richard, again, I appreciate you for coming on and taking time out of your day to tell your stories for this channel. Thank you guys for watching. It's been another episode of Real Supernatural Encounters, and I'll see you guys later. I'll see you later, Richard.
Thank you.